All right, everybody. Good afternoon. How are we doing today?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. Wonderful, wonderful. I see some familiar faces. I see some unfamiliar faces. I am so glad that folks are coming out for this. Thank you for your time. And I promise that we are going to use this time effectively. And in the next 59 minutes, we will walk away with some steps of action that you can take today in your remote classes. So what I'm going to do first is switch on over my PowerPoint presentation so we get a little content.
Simone looks so real. I just waved at her. She's not waving back.
I understand completely.
Hey.
She's there, I promise. She's there. All righty. Okay. And here we go. Fantastic. So right now you should be looking at my PowerPoint presentation title slide. And I just want to highlight briefly my email right here. If anybody has any questions or comments or feedback, once this is done, please feel free to reach out. Or if you would like a copy of this PowerPoint presentation, you can email me as well. I'd be more than happy to pass that along. Let's see. So our primary goal of the day, as you saw on the slideshow, was to apply methods of regular, effective contact with the goal of practicing student equity. Again, that is what we're here to do. We want to make sure that student equity and equity-mindedness doesn't fall off the track with our challenges teaching remotely. So that's what we're here to do today. Additionally, I've broken this up into 6 different learning objectives, not to relate it too closely to the SLO and learning objective process, but this seems to break it into bite-sized pieces for us, because each one of these 6 objectives comes with distinct action steps that I'm going to show you how they look in my course, and you can pick and choose what makes the most sense in your class and start using them immediately. Okay, so this is our goal for the day. However, before we get to that, I want to put out a very, very quick poll. So in just a moment, you're going to see a small window appear on your screen asking you a question. And the question is this: if I was your student with an urgent question, what are the available ways that I have to reach you? And I've listed several options here. You can click all of the ones that apply, and all of your answers will be anonymous. So let me launch this poll. And this is something you can do in your class, by the way. But here we go. And feel free to take a few moments, click on the choices that make sense for your class. Okay, great. Wonderful. So we have 20 folks today, okay, good, good, good. All right. So a couple people still haven't replied. Okay, and by the way, my students love this for giving quick anonymous feedback during a class session. Okay. All right, pretty good. 94% response rate, pretty good. So let's end that poll. And if I share the results, you should be able to see majority of us, LBCC email, Canvas inbox, followed by Zoom, Canvas chat, text message, phone, off-campus email, Canvas forum, quite a few, 50% on that one, great, and other options. So that's wonderful that we have so much diversity in the ways that students can get a hold of us. After all, this is one of the first steps of practicing equity, being available in multiple avenues of communication. So thank you for sharing these results. And if you see something on this that you want to learn more about, feel free to email me and I can walk you through what it would look like to be able to text message with your students without actually sharing your phone number. Okay, there are services that are free that can do that. But let's move on to our learning objective number 1, clarifying the importance of a two-way communication plan in online courses. And when it comes to student equity, I'm going to shift on over to my Canvas dashboard. So when it comes to student equity, we want to be mindful that students may not have the ability to reach the computer at all times. Sometimes they may only have limited access to their computers or limited access on the Wi-Fi or even limited data if they're using their cell phones. So one thing that can help with this, and this is something I have for all of my classes, as soon as students log into my class, they are met with my communication plan. And it does not have to look like this. It can be a simple paragraph or a bullet point list, but my students asked for more detail, so this was my response to that request. For example, this first box, how you can contact me. I give them the method, the reason, and my response time if they contact me that way. So for example, if they shoot me an email, usually that would be for a longer question that might need some time to answer, and I usually answer within 24 hours. By contrast, if they want to talk with me in a live conversation, then we can set up an appointment in Canvas Chat, which I'll show you later, or we can set up a Zoom during class time or outside of class time. And with something like a quick question, I use the service remind.com to text me a question, and that's a pretty immediate response between the day or during the day. The second part of that is clarifying how I will contact my students. To me, this is just as important for a couple of reasons, but it follows the same structure. How I'm going to contact them, the reason I will contact them, and the frequency. So for example, I use Canvas announcements for reminders of what's due, introduction to the week, letting them know we have Zoom coming up in a couple of hours. And I do that about 2 to 3 times per week. Same thing, comments in the gradebook, and I'll show you these methods as we move forward. How often I do those things. Remind.com, a couple times a week. So for me, this accomplishes really 2 tasks. One, it requires me to actually have a communication plan. And 2, by putting it up on my Canvas home page, it keeps me honest. It keeps me on track to make sure, oh yeah, I haven't sent them their announcement yet this week. I better get on that. I better do that and stay into the routine. Okay? So that is the first step, or the first objective in this process, is understanding the importance of that 2-way communication plan. Are there any questions before we move on to step 2?
Michael, I have a question. This is Wendy.
Yes.
What are you finding that the students, for the most part, prefer? Are they getting better about using email, or is the Canvas, messaging better? What do you think?
Honestly, Wendy, that's a great question. I get a very even split between email and Canvas inbox. And I get text messages every day from my students. And sometimes it's something more detailed, and I'll say, hey, could you put that in an email, or wait for me to email you an answer to that? But all of these have really been used by numerous students. I'd say the least popular is the Canvas chat. I used to sit in there a couple hours a week and nobody would show.
I'm having that same experience. That's why I asked. The chat's just not making it for some reason. So
no, and that's why I have it listed here by appointment. If they really want that, I will set it up and be in there. But I think they find it more convenient to just text me or shoot me a quick email.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So let's move on to objective number 2 of our day, discussing what the content of messages should be. And this is something that is very much an individualized objective. This will undoubtedly depend on your class, your remote structure, and of course, your communication style. What I try and focus on are messages of encouragement, reminders, support, and flexibility. So let me show you an example of what this looks like in my class. If I slide over, let's do this class, to my class in cultural anthropology. At the beginning of the week, and here we are on Tuesday, so this happens on Monday morning, so yesterday mornings, I like to send out a welcome to the week, an orientation to the week, and these can take any form or shape that you want. As mine have gone on, they become much more anecdotal, much more personal. For example, in this one, I'm recalling a conversation with colleagues where I spoke about how lucky I am to have this amazing group of students this semester. And then below that, I list our goals for the week with active links to them. So for example, by students clicking here, they're taken to the module for this week. Or if they need to email me, talking about some sensitive content this week. And if that's an issue or triggering for anyone, I invite them to reach out to me through email. Or if they just want to dive right in with a content page, they can click this link and they're taken straight into a lesson that I've written ahead of time. The same thing goes when I reach the end of the week. At the end of the week, let's see here. And my course runs from Sunday to Sunday. So they have a full 7 days to get their assignments done. And at the end of the week, so this usually happens Sunday mornings, again, I try and focus on points of encouragement. And in this case, I'm writing about adding structure to my days and maybe offering some suggestions on how this class might help structure their day. Of course, all we can do is our best, right? And in that, again, I have some functional links that will take them right to the assignments that are due that evening, just before midnight. And this goes out at the end of every single week. So the content of these messages, it's supportive, it's offering kudos, it's friendly reminders. I try and stay away from, and I'll give you an example if I just edit this message. I try to stay away from, bold or underlined reminders and demands of get your work in, because from an equity perspective, that is not the support that our students need right now. I even think about telling students what they're responsible for turning in right now. I find that to be a limited view that does not take into account the things they're going through that we don't know about. So the content of my messages are supportive. And if they miss an assignment, and we'll talk about this when I get to the gradebook, but still the response is supportive as opposed to punitive or shaming or making them feel bad in some way or another. So let me make sure I don't save this. I'm going to cancel that. My students will be confused.
Hello. Could you
Yes,
use
please.
the word accommodating?
Could I use the word accommodating? Yes, absolutely. These messages, perhaps not in this particular announcement, but often express the willingness to be flexible and accommodating. Yes, of course. Hey, if these due dates are really, really challenging for you, I'm going to follow up and check in, make sure you're okay, and get the work to me as soon as you can. I would look forward to reading your work, right? So again, it's shifting from punitive accusations of why didn't you get this done to, hey, I want to see what you have to do in this assignment. I want to learn what you've written, okay? And again, the content will vary depending on your class. I understand that. Okay, I'm very lucky that this cultural anthropology class, we talk about things like the gender pay gap or gender roles in your life. So I get that this will vary by discipline. Any other questions on objective 2? We could unpack this for an entire hour on its own, but general questions about the content of these messages.
Good.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's move on to our third objective of the day. Identify various communication tools through Canvas: announcements, gradebook, and chat. And I already have shown you the announcements that we were just working on for my class. So let's go back to my home page. And to view this through an equity perspective, we must understand that some students thrive working completely independently in an asynchronous format. They're good just doing the work, they'll get it done, you'll never hear from them. Other students might need a bit more effective contact to help them get through these lessons so they don't feel alone in the time of their learning. So what that means can be several different things. Wendy asked about the chat feature earlier, and I do have that enabled. I have used it before, though students typically do not prefer it. What I would recommend, so we have a few comments in here from previous ones. One thing that I would recommend, if you do not have the chat enabled in Canvas, maybe that is something you should think about doing and at least offer to your students if they ask to use it. So if you're not sure, you can go down to settings at the bottom, go over to navigation, and then these items up here are what are visible and active to students. So let's say, for example, your chat was inactive. It would be down in this list that is a slightly grayer color. All you would do is to drag this up. Okay, I'm clicking and holding. And then the most important step is you go to the bottom and click save. And now you and your students will be able to utilize the chat room within this section. Okay, so again, even if it's not remarkably popular, I have had students say, hey, can we meet in the chat? I have a quick question for you and I need live feedback. And I've, sure, no problem. I'll hop on in there. The second thing that I can recommend for objective number 3 lies in the gradebook. And I'm going to try and do this in a way that maintains student privacy. So I'm actually going to slide my window over so you don't see names. Okay. So here I have a breakdown of the different assignments, and all the pink represents, missing assignments, but that's not important right now. As you look at these individual assignments, there are a couple of different ways on how to reach out to students. For example, if I'm looking at, we'll take one of my discussion forums, okay, right here. And as I look at this, and I think the student name will pop up, so I'll use a test student. As you click on that individual's box, you see the grade, and you can also leave a comment. Oops, I have caps lock, pardon me. And that will be an individual comment on that assignment. So they can look in the gradebook to see whatever it is you wrote. Another way to do that is if you go into the speed grader, and while we are in the speed grader, let me get to a test student, you can view all the student submissions, and you can also leave a comment here as well. And again, these are comments that are housed within the gradebook itself. Another way to do this within the Canvas gradebook. Let's go back now. Is if you click on an assignment, these three dots right here, and I love this function. You can select message students who, and within that, if you click on it, you can message students who haven't submitted yet, who haven't been graded, who scored less than a certain a percentage on that assignment, or scored more than a particular assignment. And what I really like about these messages is it is not housed within the gradebook. This will go to their Canvas inbox. And if they have it set up, this will also be forwarded to their email. So I will often say, hey, I want to say congratulations to all the students who scored 8 out of 10 on this assignment. And so I have a nice message for these students. I will copy and paste it in, and then it will be sent to each individual who got an 8 out of 10 or better on that quiz. Same thing goes if you want to find a threshold for messaging certain students who missed the assignment. Something like, for example, I'll just make this blank. Something like, I see you missed this assignment, and I was looking forward to reading your work. Is everything okay? Let me know, and you can send it to me without a point deduction. Or something along those lines, whatever you do in your class that makes the most sense. But again, the same method of being encouraging, supportive, accommodating, and flexible, I would argue, are just as important when making comments on individual assignments. I would also recommend changing these subject lines to something more personal, as opposed to scored less than 0 on week 3. It's maybe just, anthropology message on this assignment. So something a little bit more personal than what Canvas creates automatically. Okay. So those are some of the communication tools. We talked about announcements, the gradebook, and the chat. Are there any questions before we press onward?
Excuse me, Michael.
Yes, please.
Is there any, do they get any, they don't get any kind of indication in their email if we make a comment on an assignment?
Yes and no. If they have their Canvas notifications set up for that, then they will get an email that's this assignment was graded and there was a comment on this assignment.
Okay.
So one thing that I would recommend, and that's a great thing to mention, I appreciate that question, is if you go back to the home page, I've encouraged my students to look into their Canvas account here on the left-hand side, look at their notifications, and make sure that they have the green check marks next to things like announcements, next to things like submission or submission comments. That's a way to make sure that these messages and notifications are indeed going to their email, as opposed to just their Canvas inbox, which maybe they don't check as regularly.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Alrighty, wonderful. Moving right along. Number 4. Number 4 is to enable the new analytics function for targeted contact. And I'll be honest, I just learned about new analytics at the beginning of this semester. And since adopting it, I have loved its capability. This is a very useful tool that I've started using in all of my classes, whether they were originally online or face-to-face. So let me show you what this looks like. First and foremost, let me make sure I get the right section for you. Yes, right here. So if you are in your class or classes and you move on down to settings once again, there are different tabs here. I want you to tab over to feature options. And some of these require different plugins and whatnot, but the one I'm looking for is new course and user analytics. You turn that on, update course details. Then now you see I have a new analytics navigation on the left-hand side. And this is just for me. This is not for my students to see. This is just for instructor viewing. But when you click on new analytics, watch what happens. Now look at this. Sometimes, depending on the size of your course, this will take about 24 hours to load, right? But in smaller courses or courses with not too many assignments in them, it will load immediately. So don't be surprised if it says check back in a day. Sometimes it does take that time. In this, you can track course grades on particular assignments, on individual students. You can look at weekly online activity by student name. You can look up individuals. And my favorite feature about this is the ability to message students who overall in the class have a certain percentage range. So for example, and allow me to move this down for privacy reasons. But if I said, I want to message my students who are currently not passing. So that would be from the range of 0 to 69% in my classes. And once you punch that in, you can write a personal message that will go to students with that range. Same thing goes if students who are missing certain number of assignments or have a lot of assignments coming in really late, we can just reach out to those students through this tool. So one thing that I really like to do with new analytics, and for the sake of equity, I'll show you right here, is I will pre-write these messages to go out maybe once every 2 weeks, checking in about the overall grade and overall progress in this way. And essentially it's the same message. What varies is this part right here. For example, this is for students with the 90 to 100 point range in my classes. You have an A, which is great. Keep doing what you do. I encourage you to reach out to your classmates who might be struggling and offer advice or guidance on staying focused. Okay, again, we are all in this together. This next message down is for students in the B range. Next one down, students who have C's. And again, a little more detail. This is safe. Keep doing what you do, but if you want to improve, let's talk about that. And then furthermore, students who are not passing the class, offering encouragement. We can turn it around. Hope is not lost. I'm here to help you, and so are your classmates. And so with these messages pre-written in the new analytics tool, I select the score range, I enter a subject, and I copy and paste. And then I can send it, which I'm not going to because there's nobody selected yet, but this is what the tool can do. And to me, this is a huge time saver, as opposed to writing individual emails to students based on their individual course grade. So one thing that I might recommend you do today, if possible, is to go into your classes using the settings and make sure that new analytics is enabled within your classes. So you can use this tool if it suits you well.
Michael, question?
Yes, yes.
Is there any way to turn on analytics for all of our sections at once?
Not to my knowledge. I wish there was, I would have done that.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, to my knowledge, and I'll check out with the OLED folks. I'll make a note of that question, but I believe it has to happen within individual courses. Any other questions about that tool?
Hi, Michael. Yes, I have another question. This is Loredana.
Yes.
I was looking, I think this is great, actually. I'm quite used to use Canvas, but I didn't know about this feature. So I really thank you for bringing this up.
Good, good.
So is there any way that I see that it just shows assignment and quizzes, at least when I apply to my class, I only see assignment and quizzes. So I don't see the exams, like the midterms. I also have, columns for midterms, and I don't see them popping up. Do you know if it's a feature that I can, I have to change, or it's for some reason it doesn't show exams?
Now to clarify, are you referring to the new analytics tool?
Yes,
or
analytics, yes.
New analytics tool. To my knowledge, and again, I'll check in with my friends at OLED on this, but to my knowledge, these criteria are already preset, because the exams in Canvas are called quizzes. But
no, when you can do, you see you have assignment, discussion, and quizzes.
Yes.
Right? So
Yes.
I don't have discussion because I don't use discussion in the physics class.
Mm-hmm.
So, and my exams are not in the quizzes group. They are in a different section. I call them, I think I just created a group called exams. Right. Yes.
Okay.
So since it is a physics, they write it on paper and then they just upload the PDF. It's not like a quiz that they can, you know what I mean, that they can do online. Actually, they have to do it on piece of paper and just upload the PDF. So they have a different group.
So it sounds like those exams in your class would be part of the assignments.
Oh, okay.
Since that's how you have them submitting.
Okay. I might look into those. Okay.
And if you so choose, and maybe I can walk you through this after today's workshop, is you can categorize them to be something different so that they will pop up in a different place.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, thank you. Why not?
Sure, no problem. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So let's move on to objective number 5. Create opportunities for students to initiate communication with their peers. This is something I was not always so focused on before going remote, before COVID-19. And now it is something that's not only my students have asked for, but they've been using extensively. So no matter your course structure, this is something that can work in any discipline in my mind. What I have here is, again, we're on the home page. Students click this nice big yellow icon to be taken to their lessons, assignments, and quizzes, and so on and so forth. Right here is a student discussion forum. This is something you can literally take 2 minutes. You don't even need a picture. You just need a nice message. This class is online, but I want us to maintain the bonds we built during the first month and a half of class on campus, because we're in this together. This is a forum for you all to reach out to each other. If you can give help, or you need help, or you just want to share the book you're reading right now. This is ungraded. Just lean on each other for support as needed. And you would be, I'm not going to scroll down for privacy reasons, but you would be surprised at the number of students who have taken this and said, hey, I'm willing to help out and trade contact information with you if you want to study, or if you want to work on this assignment and need some help, I'm here to help. And this is something that is now common in all of my classes. At the very top of the module page, an ungraded discussion forum. This allows students to be really agents in how they reach out to one another, if they reach out to one another, whether they need help or want to offer it. So it's something real quick we can do right now. And as far as equity goes, you know, we have to remember that these students were together for the first month and a half of the semester. Even if we don't know it, they got to know folks. They made relationships and bonds that I'm sure for many of them are now lacking severely. So by offering students to initiate their own contact, their own discussions, like I'll poke in, but I'm not really active in this forum. I just check to see if things are going okay. They're able to exercise quite a bit of agency in who they reach out to and how they reach out. On that same note, if you have not done so in the settings process, as I've shown a couple times already, I would recommend enabling the people in your navigation. From the student view, this will allow students to click on people and see the names and be able to message their classmates. So if they make contact in the discussion forum, then they can reach out to these people without even needing to exchange a phone number or an email. It's already available to them in the people navigation. Okay. Questions about number 5?
Any legal issues with that?
Not as
Letting
far
them have each other's names?
Not as far as I'm concerned. It does not show their student ID number. And it's the same name that would be displayed when they post in a discussion forum anyway. So there's no sort of private information that students can view of one another.
Michael, I have a question.
Yes.
Let's say you're using the student discussion forum and you want to offer some extra credit for participation in that. How do you, when I do extra credit, I tend to add it like to one of their exam grades. Is there a way to actually sort of set that up in the gradebook where you could have an extra credit option?
Absolutely. So I'll show you with this one right here. Now, this is not a graded forum, but let's say that it is. I can go to the forum, I can edit. And see right here, I have nothing checked, so that's why it's not graded. But if I check graded, let's say it's still out of 0. It's completely extra credit. That's just fine. I can save it there. Okay, just leave the points out of 0, which looks a little funny. But now, when you go to the gradebook, let me hide the names since we're looking at grades again. I'll find that assignment by scrolling on over because there's no due date, be at the end. And let's say this student up top participated. I want to give them 10 points. Extra credit right there.
Perfect. Thank you. That's helpful.
You're welcome. And you can do that on any assignment. Like let's say, for example, let me delete that before the student wonders why they're getting 10 extra points. They probably wouldn't tell me, but that's okay. Let's say there's an assignment that's already out of 10 points. And if somebody just really knocks it out of the park, I might even say, hey, you know what? You're getting 15 today. Good for you. And Canvas will tell you that's unusually high, but it will still let it fly as 5 points extra credit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you. That's great.
You're welcome. Any other questions on opportunities for students to initiate communication with peers? Okay, wonderful. Doing good on time, and I want to leave some. Oh yes, please go ahead.
Hi there. Hi. So
Hi.
what would the difference between using the student discussion forum versus letting students just use the chat feature?
For me, it's who's actually going to use it. And again, like I mentioned with Wendy, not a lot of students use the chat feature, which is why I created the discussion forum. But if you have the chat enabled, then students can certainly log into it with each other and use this as a space to communicate. And I've seen that too. I haven't even been near a computer. My students have been online and having a conversation about when the next Zoom meeting is. So that's effective as well. Though I find it is not as commonly utilized. So that's the big thing for me. How many people are using it?
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Great question. Thank you.
I have a question that doesn't have to do with what we just discussed. How
Okay.
much flex are we going to get for this? For this forum?
Flex 1 hour.
1 hour. Okay.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so on that, let's slide on over to our 6th objective, and we'll unpack this one and then take a little bit of time for questions, or I can show you things again if you miss a step, no problem. We're doing good on time. The 6th step is designing discussion forums that build community within the course. And this is something that, of course, may vary depending upon your discipline. But if discussion forums are not a regular assignment throughout your class, it is something I would encourage you to strongly think about for reasons of equity, for the reasons that students have these bonds, and the forum might be the only way to chat with that friend they used to sit next to 2 months ago. So let me show you a little bit what this looks like in my class. Let's slide over to another section for this. Okay. So again, depending on your discipline, this may look different, and that's okay. In cultural anthropology, I am very fortunate to have a lot of topics that relate well to students' lives. What I encourage you to think about is how you can create discussions that are culturally and socially relevant to wherever your students are, and then encourage a lively discussion about these topics. For example, last week, we talked about the anthropology of religion. And our discussion forum for that week, I have one discussion every week without fail. Our discussion forum this week dealt with rites of passage. So what I always do is offer some sort of background. Okay, here's the 10,000-foot view of this general idea. Because at this point, they've already gone through my lesson. They've already done a little bit of work on this topic already. And then for this particular assignment, I have a very short video, which is actually not new, but talking about my rite of passage becoming a parent. Okay, so these are not necessarily religious. They could be cultural, coming of age, or other key life events, like getting your driver's license. And then for their assignment, they are asked to share a rite of passage that you've experienced in your life. And it does not have to be religious, but identify the 3 stages noted above. Describe in detail to reach at least 200 words. Secondly, read and comment on a classmate's post by writing an idea or stage that you both share. And with that instruction, we're talking about something that is culturally relevant to each and every person in the class. And we're asking them to connect with a classmate by reading and commenting on a peer's ideas. So by doing this, and this, again, is something I do every single week, I find the students learn the material better when they are able to connect it to their life in some way, even if it's a small way. If it connects to their life, then they retain it better when they get their little quiz at the end of the week, as opposed to me just offering a PowerPoint on the steps of a rite of passage. I find this is more effective at getting them to retain the material, and at the same time, they're keeping the bonds with their classmates. One other thing that I might recommend, sometimes students, when they post in a discussion forum, see these numbers up here? They see see, I haven't graded these yet. They have 70 replies. And sometimes students get a little lost in, well, who do I reply to? Or nobody replied to me. What do I do? So something that I found helpful is if you go to people on the left-hand side, and I have created discussion forum groups. You can do this too by clicking this red icon, group set. You create an example. This is just an example. You can call it anything you want. And then you can choose to split groups into, we'll say a class of 40. I want 5 groups of 8. So that way they're not getting lost in 70 different discussion posts. They only have to worry about 5 to 10 different discussion posts. And you can have Canvas do this automatically, or you can create groups manually, which, shoot, if you happen to remember where your students sat back in the classroom, like who they would usually chat with, they will love to see those people in their smaller discussion group. Okay, and so once you click save, Canvas is randomly assigning the students. And look at that, you now have 5 new discussion groups, each one with 7 or 8 students in it. So if you go back to that assignment, and I should not have clicked out of that, I apologize. If we go back to my rite of passage assignment and click edit, and I scroll down and look at this. This is a group discussion. You would click that, and then you would select the group that you just created. Now, this student or this assignment has already been completed, so I can't change it now. But your new group or your new discussion groups will appear in this drop-down menu. I just can't change it because it's already been completed. But that is how you would make something into a group discussion. And again, this all ties back to equity. When students are able to create these relationships, they are more active and engaged, especially if they're talking about something that relates to their cultural experiences or their social experiences too. Questions about that idea? Designing discussion forums.
I like it because to me, what you're saying is relationships make equity possible.
Absolutely. The students will have these shared experiences and shared ideas. And even if they don't share them, they can learn from the experiences that their classmates do share in the discussion forums they might otherwise never have learned about before. You know, we can't teach them everything. Our job in the discussion forum is to monitor the conversation, check in. Hey, I notice you haven't posted yet this week. Is everything okay? Did you have a question? Or even after it's all done. I love the example of your rite of passage. Really, really good example. Thank you for sharing that with the class. Yeah, these comments, whether you do them very individualized, whether you do more of a copy paste, it is that contact, that regular communication that from my classes, students are just holding on to. It's gotten to the point where if I don't leave a comment on their assignment within a few days, they contact me and say, hey, just checking to make sure you got my assignment. And honestly, that's where I want to be. I want them to ask me for that feedback instead of just no communication whatsoever. Okay. So let's go back home and just as planned, we got through those in about 50 minutes or so. And I want to dedicate this time remaining, the last 10 minutes or so, to questions, or if there's something that I did that didn't make sense, I could show you again. And leaving on the note that different students need different things in this remote context. By following my 6 learning objectives in my classes, this has been very, very helpful at keeping my students engaged. Even the ones who may not have been so engaged before we went remote, this has helped them get back on track, even though we are socially distant. Okay, so with that, I do want to open it up to questions.
Michael?
I see, yes, Eric, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did somebody have a hand up? They can go first.
You know, I can't see everybody's faces because I'm screen sharing. So I do see a hand from Sterling Spector. Please go ahead. And then Eric will get you next, okay?
Very good. Hello.
Hi.
My question is probably not completely related to your talk today, but is there a way to check whether students have listened to the Zoom recordings?
There is a way, but it's not there are several steps to this method. And I can summarize that method for you.
Okay.
So in my class, let me go to a class that actually has Zoom recordings. My Zoom recordings are optional. They're 1 hour a week, but if students do attend and participate, then they are excused from one of the Canvas-based assignments. So once the Zoom recording is done, I post them all right here on a single page if they want to watch it later. And what I've done is I've downloaded the videos from Zoom and uploaded them to YouTube, because my students were telling me, Professor, I can't watch the Zoom videos on my phone. It's not working, it's giving me an error, but when it's on YouTube, you can watch it on pretty much anything. So by doing this, what you can do is track if students view this page that contains the Zoom recordings. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
You can see, and that's a tool through New Analytics. You can see which students view in their weekly online activity. You would select an individual and what specific pages they looked at. I don't want to show grades. What specific pages they looked at and when they looked at that page. So yeah, again, if that data is important to you, if you want to verify that they watch it, you can certainly use that tool. For my Zooms, again, they're optional, but maybe you want to, attach it to some sort of an assignment or even a discussion to verify they're viewing it that way as well.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Eric, please go ahead.
So these tools are great. I think they're going to be really helpful.
Great.
I have a number of students with technology issues in my courses, so I've kind of taken this asynchronous approach, to which I can apply a lot of these tools. And I just didn't know if you think the asynchronous approach is more inclusive, is better for equity, or I don't know if you could speak to that.
That is a great question. And in my experience, I began this whole remote situation planning asynchronous 100%, because I teach online as well. That's what I've always done. And it seems to meet the most students wherever they are. That being said, when I started class that way, my newly remote students said, "Hey, Professor, can we Zoom? Can we get together for a lesson?" And it was not what I was expecting, not one bit. I thought they would be happy to just, do the work whenever I want. Right. But contrarily to that, they requested a synchronous component. So that's why I started offering 1 hour a week of a Zoom session where we get together and I summarize these big concepts and really introduce the Canvas-based asynchronous content. Okay. So for me, it was very much a blend. As far as equity goes, for me and my classes, that was the equitable course of action. Because some students, this structures their day. I had a class this morning at 10:30 and they said, this is what got me out of bed. This is what got me out of my PJs today. Right. So one thing that I might recommend to that point is a survey of your students. Say, hey, so how are things going so far? are there things that the instructor can do differently that would help you learn this material better? And,
Okay.
This is how I learned that, oh, I should start holding weekly Zoom sessions, because some of the answers were very, very surprising, but in a good wake-up call sort of way.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. That's a great question worth pondering well beyond today. Any other questions?
Michael,
Yes, please.
there was a question on the chat
Yes.
about receiving. I'm just going to read it to you.
Please.
Regarding chat, do we receive an alert if we're not in Canvas at the moment? Would I receive an alert that I was sent a chat request in Outlook so that I can enter the chat? What if I'm in a chat with one class and a student from another class sends a chat request at the same time? How would I know that I'm receiving the chat?
To my knowledge, there is no sort of alert system that you have received a chat when you are not in that chat room. I think this is one reason why students don't really like it, because they'll show up and nobody else is there and they'll just leave when they don't get a response right away. The only thing that does occur in the Canvas chat, and again, to my knowledge, is if you turn on new message alerts, it will give you a ding when somebody sends you a message. But then you have to physically have this open to hear that alert. And yeah, so I'll look into it. I'll ask the folks at OLED that question, because I'm not exactly 100% certain, but I'm fairly certain there is no notification for the chat room. That's a great question. I wish there was. I would use it more if there was.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, Michael,
Yes, please.
can I take you back to the very start when you did your poll of us through Zoom?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I think that's a really nice tool for students as well.
Mhm.
I've only done it a couple of times and it was rather impromptu, and I quickly set up a little poll. But I
Yeah.
imagine you had that poll set up when you prepared for the meeting. And is it true? Can you sort of set up a number of those polls that, you know, maybe you want to do 3 different polls in a class? You can have them all set up and ready to go beforehand.
The way I did this poll is before today's workshop, I opened up this Zoom session and I was only in here by myself. But then I clicked the link, and I'm sorry, you can't see it on screen share, so I'll just have to tell you. But I clicked the icon for polling, and then that link took me to zoom.us, where I can create these questions ahead of time. And once you create them for an individual room, then they will be there once you open that room at a later time.
Can I add something, Michael? Actually, if you go directly onto the Zoom US, and you can get the link from the Viking portal directly. So if you log in Viking portal, then just click on Canvas, on Zoom, right? And there you don't need to start the Zoom call. You can just create the poll there.
Okay, yeah,
So
absolutely.
you don't even have to actually, you know, turn on the microphone, do anything. You just prepare that. The thing that I wish we could do was to copy and move from one session to another. Like I have multiple sessions, so instead I have to do it 3 times every time. But yes, we can definitely use this feature. You don't need to be in the call to be doing that.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. There is one thing that I wanted to briefly mention it as we are just about out of time, but I did want to be mindful that regular effective contact is a time commitment. The time it takes to write up these messages, leave Canvas gradebooks, use the new analytic reaching out tools, it's time consuming. So one thing that I practice, and I would encourage it to anyone who's thinking about this as well, is to use the Canvas timer to send out these messages when you want them to go out. So for example, my end of week message and my beginning of week message are written at the same time. The difference is in Canvas, I select delay posting. And then I decide I'm not going to make this visible until Sunday when their work is due. And then I used to do something obscure like 4:30 in the morning. So it's the first thing they see in their inbox when they check their email. And so by doing that, I don't have to be up at 4:30 a.m. typing these reminders. It sets on a timer and it will send to them automatically for the time and dates that I designate. And for me, this is a really big time saver because I'll often have the same message for my classes, copy paste 5 times, set the timer, save, and you're done. So any way that you can use the technology to serve you while you perform equitable practices, to me is a win-win. Okay, well, it looks like we are out of time. I do see a question. Yes, this is recorded. I will be posting this on YouTube, and then I believe Suman will make it available on the FPD Canvas shell. If anybody wants to go back and check on it, or if you want to share it with anybody who might benefit. So with
I'd
that,
also like to post it up on student equity as well, Mike.
Okay, sounds good. I'll send you all the link. So if anybody has any further questions, I welcome you to stick around for a few more minutes. I'll be here, but otherwise I do want to thank you for your time. This was, believe it or not, as valuable for me as it was, hopefully it was for some of our attendees today. So I appreciate your time very much, and have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon. Take good care of yourselves. Stay healthy, okay?
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.